I mean, I'll walk you guys through, some of what I do, but I guess before I even get started and kind of share my screen and can't see you, which is what I hate about sharing a presentation, what are like the main questions you maybe have or things that you feel like you need to work on with your listing presentation? I know Sydney kind of asked for this topic, so do you have something specific?
I guess I'm just kind of curious, like, from beginning to end, like what you do to prepare, what you go over with them at the initial meeting, what you save for the next time you meet them versus like the first time you're meeting them to see if you're even going to list their house.
Right.
Yeah, I think like knowing what to go over in that initial meeting and what to bring, and how you prepare, I guess.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, I will kind of start. So from the initial, anybody's reached out to me, asking the questions and they want me to come see their house and have that listing appointment. I do typically ask for a few things before I even go to that appointment. So for me, I find that running comps, I hate when I show up and I've kind of priced their house off of comps and then I get into their house and their house is nowhere near as updated, right? So I always ask them, ask for what they owe on their mortgage. That way I can come prepared with a pretty accurate, like estimated proceeds, right? Because at the end of the day, that's the number they care about the most. So if I can have a good number in hand with that appointment, right? So I ask what they owe on their loan. And then I ask for 3 pictures. I ask for a picture of their kitchen, of their backyard, and of their primary bathroom. And I tell them, doesn't need to be picked up, doesn't need to be cleaned. I'm literally just looking at finishes and kind of overall size of things. So based off of those 3 pictures, when you're running comps, even before that appointment, you can have a pretty good idea of what the rest of the house looks like, right? I mean, it's like the living room, sure, that's not as important, but the kitchen, the primary bathroom, that gives you a pretty good idea of what probably all the bathrooms look like, and the backyard size. So I ask for those 3 pictures and what they owe on their mortgage before I even go to their house. Okay. So that helps me as I'm running the comps and stuff. I typically bring the full CMA report, which I pull through Cloud CMA. I'm not sure what you guys have and what systems work through your MLS, but we're able to do that. And I was actually just walking Carrie through how I do that, because Cloud CMA does have an option that you can just kind of automatically pull the 10 closest houses or something like that. I'm very picky on my comps, so I don't go with the automated route. I like to go through, really kind of weed out the ones that are not comparable, maybe super upgraded versus this one's not. So I will manually pull those in the MLS, and then I'll upload those 10 to 15 houses into the Cloud CMA, and I'll print that whole Cloud CMA with my presentation. So I come in with my folder with that CMA report in there. And then I have my seller guide, which I've done it both ways. I mean, I bought a spiral binder thing to do it myself. Now I just pay my printer to do it and pick them up like this, which is just easier, maybe a little bit more costly, but I don't have to worry about it. And so I'll just do these. They're not customized. So I'll, have 20 of these on hand, and I bring this with me. We don't really go through this in that appointment. I have a PowerPoint I'll kind of walk you guys through next, but I tell them, hey, I'm leaving this with you to go over after. It has a lot of what we talk about in the PowerPoint. So please take your time and go through it. That way it kind of reiterates what we've talked about today. But this is a coffee and contracts template that I've just gone through and kind of added my own staging pictures and my own kind of stats on some of the stuff. So it's just and I have like a whole staging checklist and included services of kind of all the stuff that I offer with listing with me. And I will say, like, with these kind of, it's like a pre-market, and I can send you guys my version of this too, just so you can kind of edit and make it your own too. I won't send it to you in like a template version, but I'll just send you the PDF so you can review it. But I go through pre-market, kind of here's included services on market. And then while we're, offers are in, officially in contract and closing time. you and I will look at this list and be like, okay, this is kind of like, duh, obviously we do this, but it is really good to break it down because they don't do this every day. They don't know that every agent does these things. And it's not saying that this is exceptionally different, but it's highlighting everything that we do, because I think a lot of the time we just kind of assume everybody knows what we do. But when you really break it down on this very elementary level, you're like, wow, we actually really do a lot. Like we do a lot for these people and for our clients. So I think it's good to break that down. And then I also have in my little folder, when I do my presentations, I have this little jar opener with my logo, and it has like measurements on it. So it's just like a cute little thing for them to have. I love this because it fits in my folder. So I can easily just put it into the folder with my card and my little CMA stuff. And it's just a nice little extra thing that's not bulky or something super annoying and hard to do. So I love that. I get great feedback on that. I can send you guys where I've ordered that from. I order it in bulk and I bring it to like everything. I have them for open houses. I mean, anything I can bring kind of a little bit of swag. That has been the one thing I've gotten a lot of feedback on, and that people actually use it, which is so, I mean, at first I'm like, okay, this is kind of, they love it. I have people that they're like, I use mine every day. I broke it. Can I have another one? I'm like, yeah, great. Here you go. So it's great. I mean, the feedback I've gotten on it is huge for my cost investment and actually having people use it. It's been a nice little tool to have. So that's kind of what I physically bring with me. Do you guys have any questions before I go through kind of my PowerPoint in my appointment with them? I would use that every day. Seriously, I use mine all the time. I'm not joking. I use mine all the time. I'm like, I don't have to ask my husband to open this drawer. I swear I use it all the time.
I have one that a moving company gave me years back, and I use it all the time. So it is true.
Yeah. Cause I mean, it's like, okay, a branded pen or like notepads. I don't know. I've always found that stuff to be like, do they even use it? Do they care? I actually get lots of feedback on this. So I can
Does it have a funny, cute slogan, or does it just say Homes by JLo?
No, it literally, I think I used to have a slogan on it and I took it off. I think it was something, I'll have to look at the first time I ordered these, because I do think I had something, and now it's literally just my logo, the measurements, and EXP. I mean, but it's shaped like a house, and yeah, I don't know. Doesn't seem like it's anything extra special, and it's not, but people love it. So I highly recommend it if you're looking for some little branded something to have with you. But any questions about the pre-appointment? I mean, running comps, I think we all know how to do that, and prepping. So that's pretty much what I bring in that folder. Yeah.
I think the other thing that you add is the net sheet.
Right. Yeah. I always bring the net sheet with me, and I'll print out like the MLS sheets. If there's like their model match comp, I'll always print out that sheet and put it in that little binder of stuff too. But yes, I always do bring the net sheet. Because ultimately
and I'm assuming you're using a net on the comps and not where you anticipate the market driving it.
So I'll kind of do it a little bit, we always hope for this higher number, and I don't give them the lowest. So I kind of give them this median of like, hey, this price that I'm talking about for listing, and I give them a range. So I've made the mistake in the past of giving them like, I think we list here. Always give a range, give yourself some grace and a buffer of like, honestly, like $20,000 to $30,000 of a range from low to high point. That way, when you walk the house, even though we've seen the backyard and kitchen, maybe there is something totally unexpected that would tweak your comps, right? So you got to give yourself a window. So when I give them that net sheet, somebody, I think you can mute them, Carrie. There we go. So what I do on the net sheet is I don't go off that, what I call their marketing price. Because right now we obviously know their list price has very typically not been their sold price in the last few years. So I refer to whatever price we're talking about as their marketing price, right? Just to kind of verify, like, I'm not saying this is what you're selling at, this is your marketing price. And then on that net sheet, I do a number kind of in between the range of what I think we would sell for. So I'm not promising the high, and I'm telling them, my goal ultimately is above and beyond this, but here's a practical, I think, minimum number that we can expect to walk away with. Okay. Okay, so I will share my screen and we will, oh, you have disabled, Carrie. I think you have to allow me to share my screen. So let's see. There we go. Oh, okay, sorry you guys, I'm a little under the weather. Let's see, I want to view and presenter view.
JLo, are you also bringing like an iPad and so you're doing this PowerPoint with them?
Yes. So I do this PowerPoint with my clients. I bring my computer just because I don't really have the iPad and it helps to stand up however you want to do it. But yes, I bring this with me to that appointment. Honestly, I started doing this more, I felt like I needed to have something to kind of, show as we walked through the stuff. And I will say, like, sure, I want to go through this and revamp it and like more brand it and color it, whatever, it works. So lesson to you guys, like, don't overcomplicate it, like just make something and use it. So this has been really good for me. And typically by the end of this PowerPoint, most people are like ready to sign. And it's not that it's anything above and beyond, but what I like about the PowerPoint is that it allows me to make sure that I'm asking the questions I want to ask, that I'm able to know everything I need to know. And it's also keeping me structured. So if I am a little, flustered or I get a little nervous, like in those earlier appointments, it helps me have a frame of reference and helps me guide the appointment along. So I'll go through this now.
I actually, Jessica, this one that you got was the basic version. You've probably upgraded it, but from Breakthrough Broker, is that correct?
Yeah, so this was a free template from Breakthrough Broker. I think Amelia just bought a really cute listing presentation template from Etsy. Like there's better versions, but I'm telling you, this has worked for me for years. And at the same time, I'm not totally too concerned about updating it. So yes, I think Coffee and Contracts probably has one. I think all of those kind of marketing sites do. And then Etsy also has templates, but this is just a free version from Breakthrough Broker from 5-6 years ago.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Let's see. Okay. So I pretty much sit down with them and say, so before I even get to this part, I do walk through their house with them. I always ask them like, hey, can I just set this stuff here? And can you guys give me a quick tour of your house? And we walk through and I always make sure I'm complimenting the things I like about the home or the layout or whatever, and we're chit-chatting and their kids are walking around, right? So it just gives us a little bit of time to, if I don't know them at all, just to kind of build a little rapport before we sit down and talk business. So after we've walked around the house, sit down and say, hey, I have a quick PowerPoint presentation just to go through, make sure we're talking about all the main topics that we need to discuss today. So sit down. I typically like to sit on the opposite side of a table as both of them. That way I kind of have it presented towards them. But we sit down, and I just tell them, the point of today is just to get to know you and your needs better, answer all of your main questions, ask you for important information and discuss the options of timelines and what we're hoping for and our next steps, and hopefully talking about your custom action plan. And then I talk a little bit about me. I talk about my background. I always kind of bring up like, hey, I have 2 little boys, a dog and a cat. And I kind of laugh that I'm
Hopefully
in my house.
to pay our bills in June.
Okay, you know what? Please mute yourself. Let me see it.
So that Jerry can give them a better
not-
estimate of what it's going to cost.
It doesn't have them muted.
I'm trying to get back to that screen recording.
Because we have 2 days to respond to them.
Oh gosh.
And so I told her, I was like, we
Hold
need
on
to
a
respond
second.
to them with a counter one way or the other, but
Kim?
we want to be confident.
Yeah, she can't hear. You should be able to mute on your
There,
end.
I just couldn't see who was talking.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
I talk about how I was the co-president of my mom's group and now I'm on the PTA board, just kind of noting like my involvement in the community, right? And that like I know the area, right? I'm just trying to reassert that I locally am involved and know the community. And I don't know if anybody has heard of the Strengths Finder test. I think it has a different name now, but I always ask them, I'm not sure if you've heard about this personality test, but I note my top 3 in here, which are empathy, communicator, and achiever. And I note that for you guys in this process because, one, empathy, I always approach this process from a very empathetic side. I'm a mom myself. I have young kids. My goal, even with staging and listing and showing your house, is to always keep you and your family top of mind and make sure that we are keeping this process as stress-free for you as possible. Communicator, I majored in communications in college. For me, it's really important to make sure that I am communicating with you guys every step of the way. I typically like to start a group text with the 2 of you to make sure that if one of you is working or one's dropping the kids off, if there's an immediate update, that you both get it at the same time. When I'm texting you, don't ever take that as me not wanting to have a phone call with you. I'm just trying to update you. If you have questions, please do call me. And then achiever, I say, I actually really like to negotiate, and they kind of laugh. I'm like, for me, ultimately getting you guys everything I possibly can when it comes to terms and price. I fight very hard for my clients and want to get them the best deal possible. So those are a few of my strengths and how they apply to this process. And then, I love to give back to my local community. I do a lot of donations and giveaways and neighborhood events. And then I ask if they have any questions about me personally and my background. And then I'm like, now we'll talk a little bit more about my sales stats. I'm not going to talk to you guys as much about all of this, but I'll go through it, kind of, note. I do like to note, for me, I am a listing dominant agent, and I kind of explain to them why that's important if we're talking about listing their house, and that most of my sales, have been listings. And I talk about my average days on market, which, if you guys don't know your stats, I get a lot of this information. What is it called? The app, HomeSnap. Do you guys have HomeSnap? Everybody have HomeSnap? And it'll tell you, it'll give you your breakdown of like, here's your listings, days on markets, here's your average above price. And then I do note that I was rated top 100 California agents on social media. That was like by Property Sparks last year. And I go, I know that sounds kind of silly, but the importance of that and why I actually note it here is because 98% of people are going to see your property online before they've ever even seen anything about it in person. So you do want an agent that has a strong online presence and knows how to market to today's buyers. Any questions so far on any of this? Because I can't see you guys. So if you want to just unmute and ask a question, that would be great. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So for some of us newer agents who don't have extensive stats, what would you suggest doing for this?
Yeah. So I didn't used to have as much of this whole sales stat slide, and I don't know if you have to. I would probably have like maybe 5 points in this of where maybe you're just talking about your overall EXP network. You can kind of lean into some of that more. I would even maybe just do like my professional background. You could do a page that's not sales stats, but maybe a personal, here's my background personally, and then here's like my business background, and maybe highlight like 5 to 7 things of like, like I used to talk about being an event manager a little bit more. I don't really talk about that now, but my background was in event management, and how that applies to real estate now is that I would be managing anywhere from 20 to 30 events, all at different stages of the process, at a time. And I've realized now with real estate, it's very similar in that I'm tracking multiple transactions at different stages of the process with different timelines, and kind of lean into my detail-oriented side, right? So I don't think it has to be a sales stats. I think it can be here's my business background, and here's why these strengths in these backgrounds are beneficial to me here.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think one thing, Jessica, that you had me that you and I talked about for me was to add any recent sales and anything interesting about it, like it went, $46,000 over asking or sold in 4 days, and put a picture of the house. And so that's one of the things that we talked about that I implemented.
Yeah, because I used to have on here, I would do like maybe, like you said, like a recent sales, and I would have just like 3 properties that were maybe semi in the vicinity of that property and be like, you know, it was listed here, sold here, and this is how many days. So you could probably just even like that break down a little bit more of like, here's a few of my recent sales, and you don't have to be like, I've had this many. So you're just saying, here's my 2 or 3 most recent sales, and here's the stats on them. I think that's, you know, and maybe have both, maybe a little bit of business background and how that's a strength of yours. And then the little bit of a, here's just my top 3 recent sales. Okay.
And then Stephanie just added that you can use the stats from Powerhouse or Team GoGo. And I think I've added those as well. So that's another.
Yeah. You know, you can lean into some of that too. But I mean, I think the benefit of having an actual property that you have sold and the stats on that is probably a little bit more powerful than just overall Powerhouse too. But yeah, I mean, anything you want to do to make you feel confident in that appointment, and make you feel like you have some leverage behind you. Absolutely. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit, you know, about my business and my path to real estate. You know, I'll highlight, you know, the stuff about event management and hospitality, and I'll kind of talk about how that does relate, the hospitality aspect and stuff, to real estate, talk about getting my license, and then kind of ask if they have any questions about my stats or my background, anything like that. Typically they're like, no, this is great, and kind of just quiet at this point. And then I'm like, okay, enough about me. Let's talk about you and your house. Cause honestly, I really don't like that first part. It makes me uncomfortable talking about myself, but you have to get comfortable with kind of pitching yourself and your strengths. So I kind of joke like, enough about me, let's talk about you. And these questions really help me break down a lot of like, okay, what do they love about the house? Like, what's their favorite thing about the house? And they talk for a while. Like, this is a good way for you just to sit back and they will talk. So it allows you to just sit back and be like, oh yeah, I love that about the house, and kind of reaffirm them in what they've done with the house and different things. And I do also make sure I'm asking what they don't like, because that also helps me know when it comes to marketing the property, if there's something like, okay, if they don't like this, then maybe we have to work on getting something repaired, or kind of like not highlight that area. So talk a little bit about their house specifically. And then we talk here. So these 2 slides were honestly on for like 15 to 20 minutes. This is kind of where we sit for a long time because we're just talking. But it also, again, it's really nice for me if we've answered the first question, you know, you're in the middle of talking. If you don't have the presentation, you're like, what haven't I asked? Or you just kind of keep talking. And then before you know it, you're like, oh shoot, I didn't even ask like what their timeline was. And we finished this whole appointment. So this helps me make sure that I'm asking all the stuff that I need to know on my end. And I do ask them on here if they have a listing price in mind. And when I ask this, I always go, you know, do you guys have a listing price in mind? You know, it's not going to change what I've written down here. It's not going to change the numbers that I'm going to tell you of what I've researched, but just seeing if you guys have looked at Zillow or looked at anything to see if you have, you know, any sort of idea of what you would think we would price at. This helps because then I'm able to kind of tweak the next part of the conversation, because if they have a price that I'm like, oh, there's no way you're getting that, I'm able to kind of gently like get there. And because I hate when I bring out the price and what I'm like, okay, here's your range. And they're like, oh, that's way lower than I thought. And you're kind of like blindsided by their reaction. So this allows me to, okay, if I know that they're mentally way higher, I can like softly, here's the comps and here's the stats and like, here's why this is your pricing. Or if it's under, I'm like, oh, great. They're going to be super excited when they hear what I have to tell them. So it helps me navigate the rest of the conversation. Okay. So again, kind of back to myself a little bit of kind of my approach and just telling them what they get when they work with me. I'm not going to like read every single one of them. Feels weird talking to you guys about some of this. And then I ask, you know, if they've sold a house before. If they haven't, you know, we talk about, okay, here's kind of the process. I said, this is a very preliminary breakdown of the process. I said, I know this is probably a lot of information. I try to not overwhelm you in this appointment and break it down into chunks as we work together in the process. But I also have this information in my seller guide. So talk about the process, kind of what that timeline looks like. You know, right now it's about 30 days of a process being in escrow. all of that, ask if they have questions. Then we kind of go over what a CMA report is, what that means. And I always tell them, I'm basing your pricing as if I were an appraiser. I'm looking at it from an appraiser standpoint, and here's how they appraise your house typically. And we want to be within this range to be, for our marketing price. Talk about marketing their property. And then importance of staging, obviously I stage my listings. So I have quite a few slides here now talking about staging. It is nice now because when I started staging, 7 years ago now, I really had to convince people to let me stage their house. Like they were like, do we have to stage? Now I feel like most people will totally understand and expect you to stage. So I definitely don't spend as much time on this as I used to. But I still try to break them, go through it. I talk about all the before and afters. I say, hey, here's this situation on this, and here's what we did in this room. Talk about this situation, right? And we just I need to actually go through and probably update some of these, but I always highlight, like the last one, like the little kids room. I'm like, we didn't really change anything, but I'm always looking at it from a photography aspect as well, beyond just bringing in some pretty pillows and blankets, right? Because if you look at that one photo, we can't see the size of that room. If you saw that photo on the MLS, you can't really see much of that space, but just rearranging what was existing in that room from that angle of where the photographer is going to take that photo, obviously that room feels so much bigger. So they typically, even if they've pushed a little bit, which most people don't now, see what I'm talking about when it comes to staging. And then I'll kind of go through the second slide pretty quickly. So, people like visuals. It really does help them to see some before and afters and just see that it's not drastic, because I'm kind of trying to show them, like this master bedroom. I'm like, we just updated the bedding and made it brighter and edited some things out, because staging can feel scary and people just think you're going to take everything they own out of their house. And I'm intentionally trying to highlight here that I'm not taking everything out. I'm using a lot of their existing stuff, but we're just editing it and making it a little bit better.
Where do you have them put their stuff? Where do they ask, like, where am I supposed to put this?
Yeah. So I tell them, we'll go through. I don't. So this is one thing I know Sydney was asking. I will not walk them through what I would do staging until they're signing the listing agreement with me. I have made the mistake in the past that I would do that with them, thinking that was going to build more trust, or they were going to see my value early on of I'm going to walk them through and tell them all the stuff I would do staging. Well, they ended up going with somebody else that maybe was reducing their commission, and they did half the stuff I told them to do. So I've kind of learned that I will not walk them through that staging breakdown until I come back for the listing paperwork. I typically don't bring the listing paperwork. It depends on the situation. I am a little bit more of a soft sell in that I want to be no pressure. When I'll come back and we'll sign the listing paperwork, and then we'll go room by room and talk about the staging. It just feels less pushy for me. So it typically just works better for me to not push for the paperwork in that appointment. But as far as where they store their stuff, it's pretty normal here that their garage is filled with boxes. So I tell them, you're welcome to keep it all in your garage. I would just keep them nicely stacked in one space. Or if they want to get a storage unit, they can. But I tell them they don't have to get a storage unit if they don't, if it's not too much stuff. So it's up to them.
Jessica, you have a question. Do you charge extra for staging, more than 6%?
So here the norm is 2.5% for each side. I now charge a higher commission for my side. So I'll charge 3% for my listings. Previously, though, I did not. My first couple of years, it was hey, it's not extra. It was just included with my package to get the listing. So I didn't used to, but I also didn't do as much staging. So now I do more. So I do charge more now, but initially just to get some of those listings and to win out versus people who were gonna not do the staging, or maybe they were reduced commission. To me, I didn't feel like I maybe could win it. And I probably could have, honestly. I probably didn't have the confidence that I needed to, but I did not charge a higher percentage for my first couple of years. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So then kind of just quickly, I don't spend too much time on here. Some of this I probably should update a little bit too, but I tell them, this is all in my seller guide as well, but here's some of the things that I do as part of my marketing for the property. Kind of ended on a, final note. I will be personally available to you. My team will make it smooth. I will go above and beyond. I'll be ethical, honest, and treat you guys like family, and kind of leave it there. Thank you, and kind of open it up for their questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. So this is then when I'm like, okay, great. Do you have any questions about me, about the process, anything like that? No, great. Let's talk numbers, because I know that's what you really care about. And that's when I'll pull out the CMA report and kind of go through it. I typically don't go through like comp by comp anything. I will just flip to the page with my range of pricing and show them that. And then we'll talk about the estimated proceeds. So I leave the whole CMA report with them unless they're like really questioning me, or I know that what they were hoping to get is way higher than where I'm at. Then I'll go through a little bit more of those comps. But I kind of leave it for them. I mean, you'd be surprised, more people than not don't really have a lot of questions on the pricing, and they kind of just like, okay, that all sounds great. Like, what's our next step? So that's kind of my process on the pricing. I don't make that an overly focused highlight, if that makes sense. Like we're talking more about the process and what I can do for them and how it'll go. And we talk about the pricing a little bit at the end. And if we're off on the pricing, we have a conversation about it. Does anybody have questions? Can I look at the...
This was very helpful, even for me to see it, and it was very helpful.
Good.
You're presenting them the numbers, do you like point out your fee, or do you just like kind of go through and like go right to the end, like this is what you would net, and let them kind of like look at it after?
Yeah. So I don't really spend a lot of time of like, okay, here's my percentage, here's their, but I do. I mean, I highlight their bottom price, right? And like circle it. And I'm like, okay, this is your walkaway proceeds after, any of your costs and commissions and all of that. And then typically, like some people ask about the percentage, and I'll talk about it a little bit, but I don't really walk them through point by point on like, here's where your loan amount is, and here's where your sales price would be. It's a little bit more of like, here's where I think you'll land on your price at minimum, and here's what you would walk away with. And I do charge my listings the TC fee now. So I do charge a higher percentage, and I have them pay for the coordinator, which is all on that net sheet. So, they do see that. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's Amy. I'm on my iPad.
Nice.
Sitting in my car, but I came in, I think I was still driving. So the booklet that you had, how is it different from that little presentation that you just shared?
It's not a lot different. There is some stuff in there that I don't talk about. Like I'll talk about, like trying to flip through here. I do have some reviews in here.
Okay.
So I have a little bit about me, some highlights.
And that's just something you're leaving with them. You don't really like go through it.
Mm-mm.
Okay, cool.
No. Because I tell them, I'm like, half the time it's families, they've got kids, at this stage, we've been here like probably at least an hour, probably an hour and a half talking and walking the house and everything. But I'm like, please go through this. I really do emphasize, I'm like, go through this, read through it. It's got some additional information. And it's nice. I mean, it's good quality, nice colored packet. And overall, I think the presentation of that after I leave, people appreciate. But I don't go.
Are you staging any vacant listings? Do you ever have listings that are vacant?
Yeah, I've had some vacant listings. At this point, so what I've done, depending on the property, is all stage like as much as I can. Like I don't have couches, and I don't want to buy a couch because it just takes up so much room and it's tough to do. Jessica's like, yes. So I don't like doing couches. I have air mattresses and stuff for beds, and I have like the little risers, right? So it raises it so it doesn't look so low and bring it up to a more bed height. So I can pretty much do everything. I do have a dining table, except couches. So for me, I have one stager in my area who will rent me just a couch, which I've done before, but even just to get the couch was like $2,000 for, I mean, it was ridiculous. So thankfully now they do have boxed brownie, I think is what it's called, box brownie. I think it's just box brownie. I'll type it in here. Maybe.com. It's virtual staging. So what I'll do, depending if I have it, most of my listings are occupied. Like 99% of them are occupied. I've only had a few that I've had to do it with fully vacant, empty. And what I've done is I'll stage as many spaces as I can. And then maybe I'll virtually stage like the living room with the couch and the whole setup if I needed to. And then when people come in, they don't really question it. I mean, the pictures still show really nice online, and it really is never an issue in person. So I've had to do that worst case scenario, but it's not very often that I have to do a vacant house.
Typically, if they say, like, this is great, we want to work with you, do you just set up a time then and there to come back with the listing paperwork? Or what's the follow-up timeline process kind of look like?
Yeah. I always tell them, I'm like, I mean, for me at this stage, if it's somebody like I know they're not meeting with anybody else, I will bring the listing paperwork. Sometimes I'll be like, hey, I'll just leave this for you to review and we can come back and sign it together. I'm not as often going up against other agents at this stage, but if they're like, we're ready to go and we'll sign right now, then I will, if I didn't bring the paperwork, I'll say, great, let's schedule for me to come back. We'll go through and then we'll spend some time talking about the staging and go room by room and do that breakdown. Because it's kind of too much to do in one appointment, to be honest, anyway, to expect them to process the listing process and then also add the staging and all of that on top of it. For me, I find it's a little too overwhelming for them and a little stressful to do everything in one appointment. So I'll come back, if they're ready to go, I'll come back, within a few days and we can sign the paperwork and do the listing walkthrough for the staging.
I also like that you said that it feels less like pushy, because who knows who's been in before you with their little packet, like, okay, are you ready to sign? And it just makes you seem like just more down to earth or real, maybe.
It just feels more authentic to me. I mean, I don't like thinking of myself as a salesperson, right? But that's what we are, I mean, at the root of it. But I like to come from it from a more educating and teaching aspect. And so for me, it just feels more authentic to my approach to be like, I'll come back and we can sign this. And most people actually find that more respectable. At least my response to it is that they really appreciate that I'm not like, here it is, sign now. So it works better for my comfort level and how I approach it.
So Jessica, how do you deal with situations like the online, DocuSign versus like wet signatures? Because what are you doing about that?
So I always have them sign the listing paperwork with me in person. I do that and I combine that with that staging time. So both of those always happen together. For me, I tell them, hey, everything beyond this will pretty much be DocuSigned or Glide or whatever online. But I like to do the listing paperwork with you in person to make sure that you fully understand what we're signing and what we're talking about before moving on any further. Because I do find, to me, I don't know if I would feel comfortable that they're fully understanding what that listing paperwork is saying if they're not sitting down with me talking through it as they sign each thing. So I like to do that in person. I know some people DocuSign the listing agreement. I'm not sure how they approach that because I don't know if they're asking questions as they sign it or if they're just kind of blind signing the whole listing agreement. Does anybody DocuSign their listing agreement? You do?
I did. And I feel like I took the listing paperwork in paper and then had them bring their iPads to the kitchen table because they both had iPads, and they just, after we went through each page, they would just sign kind of as.
But you still had them DocuSign in person with you and
I had them DocuSign in person, but went through it page by page, and that seemed to work okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I just prefer to do it wet sign, and I'm fine with that. But I think doing that way, Jessica Ruff, do you just DocuSign it, like not in person at all? Okay.
I don't know if it's because most of our listings are all referrals.
Mhm.
And so this whole like listing, I've never, full disclosure, I've never been on a listing presentation.
Mhm.
I've gone, like this morning I went and but we had already been having conversations about them and like timeline and when we can get photographers in there. And so I went today just to get eyes on sort of what the house looks like. It was a divorce, and so they're all like moving, and so we're
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's staying, what's not, what's the condition, getting some details about like roof and HVAC and all that kind of jazz. And then we ran some comps today and are sending them over. And the same happened, well, I guess a little different. I had an open house this past weekend, and the lady a nosy neighbor came down, and so I went to her house yesterday morning. Although they go back and forth between California and here, so they're selling Kentucky, and he's now moving out to California. But I just went through and like took pictures and just sort of got to see condition, because they purchased it only a year ago. So I was in the old listing looking at it, but they had done some work. So I was like, can I just come and like get eyes on it before I like start to run numbers so I can understand? But so
Yeah, it's always different when it's, I don't typically do the full presentation when it's somebody that I know is using me. We'll kind of go through some of it still. But yeah, this is more for a, not committed, I think, seller. Any other questions?
I have a question. On your listing paperwork, you have to put the price, right? Is that how yours?
Yes.
So if you're in the appointment and you're giving them a range, do you kind of just come up with that together? I just had one listing and my seller was just, he had no opinions. And it was my first one. So I'm just like, oh, I hope I'm right. Like on price.
Well, and normally, like I said, I'm coming back to the appointment, with that paperwork.
So they've had time to think.
I'm telling them like, we'll solidify this pricing as we get closer to our list date. And then when we put that actual price into the listing paperwork, I'm saying this is just a preliminary price that we're plugging in for now. I'll reevaluate it as we're prepping that week to go on market, and we may adjust the price, higher or possibly lower, which is unlikely in current market, but there's a chance this number may be adjusted right before we go on market. So I just make it pretty clear that this is just a number for now that we're plugging in, and that it, we'll adjust it and tweak it as needed.
And then do you have to have like them initial off if you do change that price? Okay, you just have them like initial on the listing.
There's a DocuSign like modification of terms form.
Okay, I don't know any of that. Okay, write that down.
Yeah, at least in California, it's a modification of terms that you're saying, we're adjusting per the residential listing agreement, the price.
I'll have to look and ask.
Yeah, that's pretty simple.
There seems to be a form for every thing, so I'm sure there is a form for it.
You literally just like search some random word and you'll find something, I'm sure. So yes, I do adjust it that way if I need to.
What else do we have for Jessica? Anything else about listings? Anything else about any of her amazing skills and talents? Now is the time in a small group to ask away. No,
I don't think so.
We're a quiet.
I don't want to take up all the questions, but no one else has questions. So I have actually I have good timing because I have 2 listing appointments tomorrow.
Good for you.
One's a referral and it's like tenant occupied. So it'll be vacant when I sell it, most likely, or if I sell it, I guess, when I sell it. But that's a referral. Yeah, that's a referral. So that one will probably be a little bit easier. It's from another EXP agent. But the other one is like an older couple at the beach. They've lived in the house forever. And they're like, we just don't know, where will we go? If you can get us, you know, I don't know how to, I mean, obviously I'm pretty also non-pressure. Let me just give you the facts and let you decide kind of thing. But any like advice or pointers? I've had a couple chats with him. I don't know, he's saying something about like the house is like settled. So I'm not sure if they would just buy it for the land. I'm like, what are you mean like your foundation is off? Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So obviously I need to go once and check it out first.
Yeah. And I mean, if it's an older property, like where we are, it's a lot of newer homes, but like where Carrie even is, there's homes that can be a little bit older. So I would recommend doing pre-market inspections. I mean, if they're telling you they might be a little concerned, you may want to do an inspection just to be able to know if it is something major, if you need to adjust your pricing, and have that if they know that there's kind of possibly a defect up front, you know.
Okay.
Amy, where did he come from?
That's my Z buyer.
Oh, you're a Z buyer. Okay.
Yeah. So that was my first listing, was from Z buyer. And then I have this other appointment. It's all the older people that come back to me. He's like also in my first one was, I think he was 74 and he was just done. And then this guy, they're the only ones that call you back. The older people.
The older appointment, like the older.
Yeah, they'll always call you.
I plan on being there for literally twice as long because they're just very chatty. But I mean, it's, especially if they've been in there a long time. I mean, you want to take the time to make sure that they feel taken care of, and the process is very overwhelming for them, and, helping them set up vendors and different things that need to be done. I mean, you just handhold a little bit more, but they also just want to know you care. So taking your time to go through their concerns and let them know how you can help, I think is really important with the older clients who have been in their houses a long time.
Yeah, because I think he said he's like in his 80s and he was just like, we would just need to get enough money. They have a reverse mortgage that would need to be paid off and then get like as much money to just live, I guess. So I don't know. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, with older clients, it typically is easier if they have the ability to move out when you go on market. I would recommend kind of talking through those scenarios with them of, are they able to move out ahead of time? I mean, especially if they have a lot to declutter and get rid of, you may want to encourage them to try and get out of the house, just because it can be very overwhelming for them, and stressful to have to get out for showings and open houses and be gone for a whole weekend. More because they don't understand the current process and market as well. So I think it would be less stressful on them if you can try and figure out relocating them or where they're going to go next and work on that a little bit.
Amy, I think you have a great personality to deal with the older folks. Just be prepared.
Carrie does.
They love
so
me.
Good.
I mean, I like them, because
I do too.
They do need a little hand holding, and you can, you're not going to breeze through like she said, like it's definitely more, lots of phone calls about every question, but I don't know.
They're so sweet. Yeah, it's just, it's a little bit of a different approach, but yeah, Carrie's very good with them. We've done very well
in the senior market.
You guys have a niche. You have an elderly niche.
Yeah.
I know. I was thinking about that. I told my husband that's going to be my niche.
Hey, it's not a bad niche at all.
I don't mind it too, because most of the time they're just selling, they're ready to be done. And then my market's crazy for trying to buy something. So it was nice helping you sell your house. See you later.
Yeah. Like, enjoy your retirement. Yeah. No.
Right. Enjoy all this money I just made you. Goodbye.
No, it's good. It's, and just highlighting that what you do for them. And I think they care a little bit less of like, here's my flashy stats and online marketing, right? It's like, they just want to know that you care and that
Mhm.
you're going to take care of them and look out for their best interest. So
Yeah.
I think you're just shifting some of that conversation. It's a little less, here's my stats and here's why all these things and all the marketing channels. Like, do they really care? No, they don't.
Yeah. They don't
But
understand
they love themselves some pop buys. They love it. Love it. And they want you to stay and they want you to come in and see what they
Yeah, I'm like, you cannot just pop by. You have to ring the doorbell and stay.
Yes.
I thought you said Popeyes. I was like, what, chicken?
Yeah, like Popeyes.
Oh, yeah. They probably like that too. But I mean, I have this one who I love. Jessica knows Diane, and she is high maintenance. I will not lie, but I love her. And I went by to do her Easter pop by, and she's like, "Oh, come in, come in." Next thing I know, she has me pulling out my calendar to go look at tile with her next week. And I'm like,
Really?
wait, how is this happening? How is this happening? I'm getting married in less than 2 months. How am I going shopping for tile for your new kitchen with you?
That's funny.
That's
Hey,
funny.
she's going to be that type of person that talks to all her neighbors and she is going to sing your praises, right? So these are those A++ that I don't know about shopping for tile. That's a little above and beyond, but
Well, she wants to go right down the street from my house, so we'll make
that's
it quick.
yeah. No, I think, any of this in just summary is like just adapting to what their questions are. I have somewhere the husband wants all the numbers and the stats, right? So you just lean into that a little bit more. I always make sure I'm like a pretty balanced. If one spouse is more chatty than the other, I try to always, after the one chatty one has kind of stopped, I'll be like, what about you? What are your questions? How are you feeling? What's priority to you? Just to make sure that I'm, everybody feels seen and appreciated. And, I think that's just part of it, is just taking your time and adapting and not just being too rigid in these appointments. And like, I need to get through these 5 things, and kind of just seeing and feeling like what is priority to them, what is important, and then leading into those topics, right?
I think I just have one more question. Do you guys have like a quick printout of all of the stuff that you need to plug into the MLS, like that they would fill out, other than the seller's disclosure? Is there somewhere I can get that? Because I went off an old listing, like he had bought the house 4 years prior, and I was like, oh, thank God, because I didn't ask any of these questions. But
like
for this other one,
property features, or what do you mean?
kind of, yeah, I guess with,
Like, is it
all
on
the,
electric, or is it on sewer, or is it on,
yeah,
what
all
kind
that
of
We have
stuff.
a couple disclosures here, like the transfer disclosure statement and the seller property questionnaire, 2 here that are like super detailed. Like they literally go through and they check that the house has a range and sprinklers in the backyard. So it's like they know most of it already in those disclosures. But I do ask most of my clients to send me, after we've signed the paperwork, to either text or email me like a property highlight or upgrades list of things that they've done to the home. So that's stuff that I probably wouldn't be able to find between disclosures and previous listings of the property. But most of the time you can find a lot of the information from a previous listing of that property in terms of like the very specific property details. And I'll just ask questions on some of it, but I don't necessarily have a list that I go through with that stuff, because I feel like I find it pretty easily in the disclosures.
Amy, I had that situation on a house that had never been never been on the MLS, because it was like an original owner from the 50s or whatever.
Mine's tomorrow, so I'm wondering.
Okay, so what I
Yeah.
did was, once, and then it was also a situation where we didn't have to do disclosures because he never lived there. So I literally called when I was doing my MLS stuff. I literally just called him and was like, okay, I have some questions that I need for the listing. And, hopefully the answers. And he actually did, because I mean, it was his dad and he grew up living there for a while. So he knew most of it. But I just took the time
Just
and
gotta ask him. Yeah.
I went from when I was on the phone and he was fine with it. I don't know.
Okay. Sounds good.
I don't know if that's the right way, but that's what I did.
I mean, if you just got to get the information one way or
You
another.
gotta get it done.
Mhm.
Any other questions for J-Lo before we let her move on with her day?
No, but I just wanted to say thank you for coming on, even though you're not feeling good. This is
you.
super helpful and I hope you feel better.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been just a weird, I don't know, but I'll survive. We'll continue on as we always do. But yes, I'm glad I was able to make it for you guys, and let me know. I don't know if there was anything I needed to send. I think I said I would send something.
Yes, you said you were gonna send. Shoot. Who
Is there a
remembers?
way to do like the different slides from your presentation, or you said
The
you were gonna
template,
send
wasn't it? The template from
Oh.
Breakthrough Broker.
Yeah.
The template is Breakthrough Broker. Oh, I know. You said you were gonna send your seller's guide in a PDF form.
Okay.
And there was one other thing you were gonna
Why
send.
don't you guys put your email in the chat real quick, and I'll just send it directly to you guys, since you guys are the ones that showed up.
Sorry, this is Demi. I can't put my camera on. I'm literally in my robe still. But you said you were gonna send where you ordered the jar openers.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, put your emails in the chat, and I'll send all of you both of those.
I feel like I need to have a jar opener.
You
It's
know,
life-changing.
it's something you
Apparently,
never
I've never
get
used
repeated.
one.
I know. Seriously, I'm telling you, I've never gotten so much feedback on one little piece of, marketing material.
How much do you think your little listing presentations, the bound ones, cost?
I'll have to look. I mean, like I said, I before just printed them at home and had a little, bought the spiral thing on Amazon, but now I don't know. I'll look and see what I spent on the last one, but
I've
sure.
gotten some printed at like FedEx before.
Mhm.
They'll do them at FedEx for you. And I think they're like, depending on the paper that you choose, and you can make them like nicer or cheaper. They were like about $20 a piece. So I'm sure you could do them.
$2 a piece. I feel like mine were.
I feel like mine were like 9.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
it depends on like what I know. I was thinking, I'm like, I must have chose like premium paper or something. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think they can range from like $8. I mean, all the way to like $40 or something.
I want to say mine were more like
Like
$8,
$10.
not cheaper.
One quick staging question. What do you use a riser to put your air mattress on? We have
Yeah,
a full on bed that we bring around.
You have a full bed.
Like a headboard, but like all the pieces stack into the headboard, but I bring it in and then like undo it and like have my power tools. It's not hard. And I'm not like putting all the slats in because no one's sitting on it, or laying on it.
Hopefully.
You can use a folding table too.
Liability there. Yeah, I've seen the folding table thing. I don't know how I feel about that. But yeah, I have like
We'll make it look cushier.
I have a double high air mattress that I'll use that like automatically fills. And then I think it's just like, I think they just call it like a bed riser, but it's like there's like 2 different heights. It comes with like 8 pieces, and it's like this tall or this tall. And it's like these rectangle, square little risers. So I'll just put it in all 4 corners. So it's like rise.
They're the ones for like college beds.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I've always seen those look like cones. No? They have square
No,
ones.
and you can't see it because I have like a
Oops. Are we frozen? Are we frozen or everybody's good still?
still here. Anybody?
Okay.
Anything else?
Amy, I just looked it up. I paid $41.65 for 5.
Oh, you guys are getting a deal. Where did you get them from?
I went to like a local,
Yeah.
more of a local print shop as opposed to
Like a FedEx? Okay.
Yeah, I
I
did a
definitely need to
little-
look that up because I'm definitely sure I paid like almost $20.
Yeah, that's too much. Yeah.
Mhm. And I was thinking, this is too much.
Yeah, that's too much for one.
Okay.
So I would definitely look into another option.
Well, thank you, Jessica. It was
Thank you.
really amazing. I will, let's see, do you get all these emails down?
Yeah, I'm copying them into my into an email now. That way I have
Okay.
them.
And so I will text you right now what you said you'd send, so you have
Yeah,
it.
I remember which.
You do? Okay.
Now, and I'll
Jar,
just-
the seller guide, and breakthrough broker, I think were the three things.
yeah.
So, all right, you guys, thank you so much. It was awesome. Our next meeting is I think it's the 7th or something of, the 5th of May. We don't have anybody yet, but I'll get working on that. I'm
Cinco
hoping.
de Mayo.
Huh? Oh, Cinco
Cinco
de
de
Mayo.
Mayo.
I'm hoping that we can get Amber and Alyssa. We haven't had them. So I'll get working on who can come visit us. Anybody have any topics that they want or need help with? Or someone that they want to have come talk?
One thing about next week that I just realized is Gogo was talking about it and I've had 2 people mention it, mainly because my sister might need it. EXP is doing their relocation certification starting next week. And that will conflict with next Thursday, by the way, because I think I'm going to do it because I might need it.
It's not next Thursday, it would be
Do it
May
every
5th.
2 weeks.
Right, but it's 4 weeks. I wrote
Oh.
it down. So it's the 5th, the 12th, and the 26th of May also.
Okay. All right, well, hopefully I can find someone who will do it, and then we can record it for those people who are
Yeah.
gonna be missing.
The relocation, you have to be licensed for a whole year, right?
Oh, you do?
I think so, because I was signed up for it to do it, and then I saw like the sheet. I could be wrong, so don't.
Oh, I'll go look
quote
it up
me.
because I'll be just shy of 12.
So
of a
maybe
year.
it'll count, like if you just like cross over.
Yeah. Hey, I'm glad you said
because
that. I'll go look it up.
Mine had like, those dates are, it's a big commitment to do all those trainings on those
Right.
days.
Well, I'm wondering, I mean, when it's finished, I would have been at my year. So I wonder if that would count.
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up. I'll ask the broker or something. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks,
Jessica, I
Jessica.
will get this recording up here in a little bit, and have a great Thursday.
Thanks, J-Lo.
Thank you.
Bye.